Hey guys, this is Swift for Chinese Tech. Today I'll be doing a review of the Huawei Mediapad X1, also known as the Honor X1. The Honor X1 is basically the one that they use, the name they use in China, and the Mediapad X1 is the name they use in other international retail stores and whatnot. The main difference is the name, and there is nothing else that's different. And there is two versions rather, regardless of the name. It's the 4G or the 3G version. If the 4G version, obviously it supports LTE, and if it's a 3G version, it supports up to 3G data connection only. So that's something you want to take note. The version I have here is the Honor X1 3G version, so I do not have 4G connectivity, so I cannot comment on that. So before we go into the review, let's just do a quick specifications readout. So this is the Honor X1. In terms of dimensions, we have it at 183.5 by 103.9 by 7.2 mm. So that's the dimensions of the phone, and it is pretty thin for such a device, and that is something that they advertise heavily on their website, that this is one of the thinnest device that you can get with money. So it supports single SIM, and the networks that is supported for 2G network is GSM 850, 900, 1800 as well as 1900 MHz. For 3G network, it supports WCDMA 850, 900, 1900 as well as 2100 MHz. So if you have the 4G version, it supports TDD as well as FDD LTE. So for more specifications, if you missed out anything, do refer to the full written review. There will be a specification table, and so if you missed out anything, or if I said anything too quickly, you can just refer to that table to get a more in-depth specifications. So anyway, in terms of display, we have a 7.0 inch 1920 by 1200 resolution. Now this is not a 1080p Full HD, it's higher than that, slightly higher. This is the older resolution that computer monitors used to use, and that is again 1920 by 1200, and is a IPS LCD display. Now in terms of hardware, it is powered by a high silicon Kirin 910 quad-core processor. This is, I believe, their house-branded CPU, and is also powered by the Mali 450 MP4 GPU. So the specs-wise, it isn't the greatest, but that is something that I will talk a little bit more on later. So in terms of RAM, it has 2 gigs of RAM, and ROM, there's 16 gigs of ROM. And don't worry, because it has a micro SD card expansion slot. So yep. So in terms of camera, the front camera is a 5 megapixel camera, and the back is a 13 megapixel camera capable of recording videos up to 1080p at 30 frames per second. And in terms of OS, it's running its own custom Android 4.2, and that is the Emotion UI version 2.0. 2.3 is available as well, but you will have to flash it yourself. It is developed for the phone, but it's an official release, but I'm not sure why they did not put it up on the off-the-air update for you to update. So that is something that you want to take note. In terms of GPS, it supports GPS with AGPS functionality. WLAN version, it supports up to 8N, wireless N, but if you have the LTE or 4G version, it supports up to wireless AC, I believe, and it is dual band as well. So in terms of battery, now battery is insanely good. I'll talk more about that as well later. Battery is 5000 milliampere hour built in, non-removable, and it supports Bluetooth 4.0, and that's about it. Now let's just talk about the phone now. In terms of the display, since we're looking at it right now, it is a 1200p or 1920 by 1200 display, and it looks great. Let's just say it looks great, and there is nothing much to comment on that. The colors are good, it's vibrant, contrast is there, and the thing is that the 1200p resolution really helps in terms of making everything look very sharp. Now, is it sharper than 1080p? No, it's definitely not, but it just looks, overall, it does look very good. It's very nice to read on, and the brightness level are bright enough for you to use under direct sunlight, although there might be some, of course, there'll be some reflections going on, but that's about it. And so yeah, display is really good. Very nice 7-inch display. Brightness very good. There's nothing much more to say except that it's good. Yep. So moving on, since we look at the display, we'll talk about the design and build quality. So as you can see, the phone it does look quite generic, I must say. There is nothing too special about it, and yeah, then there are just some few issues I have with it. First is, can you guess? Is the speakers. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I'm absolutely not a fan of this at all. So otherwise, it should be fine, except that if you take a look at the right side, I don't understand what is the thought process that gone into this, but here is my take on it. Now, the power button as well as the volume rocker is slightly situated below what usual devices have it. Usually, if you take a look at your phone, it'll be slightly up like that, towards the top. However, Huawei decided that they wanted more centralized. Now, the only reason I can think of for them doing this is that they want you to use it. If you are using it as one hand, you can actually reach the buttons. But weirdly enough, you wouldn't really want to use it in a one-hand operation for a phone of this size. So that is something that is really weird. And the problem with having it so centralized is that I find myself pressing it so many times by unintentionally. Because if you're a person that likes to carry your phone with you, like just hold it and transport it around, you can see that if you hold it like that, and if you squeeze it a little bit, because the phone is big, if you're gonna hold it secure and you squeeze it a little bit, you will actually accidentally turn the phone on. And this can become really, really irritating. So that's something I'm not too sure about. So I'm not really happy with the placement of the buttons. I really prefer them to have it situated a little bit up and shift the SD card slot to the bottom. Yeah, so that's just one of my major quirks. Otherwise, in terms of design, it's very generic. Nothing too crazy to point out. And overall, the build quality is good. I did mention in my unboxing, if I remember correctly, that it has a slightly cheaper feel, and I still stand by that stand. It doesn't have this very premium kind of device feel to it, but it is built well, you know, it's built well. It's pretty nicely built and sturdy. Everything holds on together really well. So that is that. So moving on to the phone performance. Now, in terms of phone performance, the phone is good, alright? Overall, in terms of all kinds of general kind of usage, it is pretty good. You will see here, I can just show you some, is that the UI, etc. is very smooth. Opening apps, so on and so forth, this happens and there is no lag, etc. So general phone performance is good. In terms of phone calls, etc., is also very good. I have not dropped any calls. However, your mileage may vary because of your cellular network and whatnot. But overall, I haven't faced any issues. Voice was clear at both ends, and that's a very good thing, especially because if you treat this as a phone. Of course, the size can be an issue. It's slightly awkward to hold it and talk on it because it's larger than usual. Of course, it's 7-inch. In terms of display, so that is something that you want to take note of. Now, with that said, there are some issues with the performance, and that only comes when you are running something that is very CPU intensive. Now, if you look at the synthetic benchmark, the CPU isn't the fastest. Now, what I'm going to do here is quickly see if we can just browse a website and show you. Now, if you start browsing, say Chinese tech, which is design, Oh, I off that for. I'll just describe it to you. If you visit a site that it has a mobile site or is designed for mobile users, it runs fine. However, if you go for a full-fledged website that is designed for desktop users, the phone will start lagging, and the main problem with that is that the CPU isn't fast enough to process everything, and everything loads really slowly. And the 1200p resolution obviously does not help, because it just taxes the hardware even more. So CPU intensive stuff, there are not many things that like that. The browser is probably one of the most extreme example, especially if you visit a very heavy website. Otherwise, everything else loads very smoothly. I could just show you opening Twitch, but of course the network is gone because I turned it off. I don't want any messages to come disturb this review. Yeah, so everything else runs smoothly, and otherwise it is pretty much fine. Now, what I want to point out is the battery life. Now, the battery life, as you can see here right now, is 14%, and I'm not worried at all of it dying out in this review and the phone software overview afterwards. The reason why is because the battery life is insanely good. Now, let's just put this into context. I've used it for about 7 hours of intensive usage, and that is basically like 3G web browsing, watching videos on Wi-Fi, etc. Now there's 7 hours of display on, and I still had about 35 hours, I believe, 35 or 32 hours of standby time with occasional WhatsApping, messaging, calls, etc. So it's really good. I believe you can even draw out 10 hours or so of usage, and when I mean use, you mean turn on the screen with your 3G, browsing the net. 10 hours of that, and you still have lots of battery at the end of the day. You do not need to worry at all. And while this is I'm not sure to compare this battery life with tablets or phones. Of course, if you compare with phones, it's just insanely good. There aren't many phones out there that I can actually say that you can use it for so long and still have battery. Whereas if you compare it for tablets, it's one of the better ones, definitely. I can guarantee you there's one of the better battery life out there. And yeah, so battery life is insanely good. Let's just put it that way. Now, in terms of GPS, the GPS tracks pretty well. It locks your location good. It definitely performs better than other MediaTek powered phones. There isn't anything you have to do. It works out of the box. And there are just some minor issues that the GPS suddenly starts lagging behind slightly, like 1 or 2 seconds, but it isn't a problem. I used it for a test drive, and I didn't lose my way. Navigation was good, and yeah, GPS works on this phone. So overall, the X1 Honor X1 performs well for both as a tablet or a phone. It should manage everything good enough, and unless you are going to browse something like a very heavy website or something like that isn't optimized at all for mobile devices, then it will start showing that it isn't the best. Yep, so that's just something you have to take note of. Otherwise, if you have like apps, etc., like if you have Reddit, you have your own magazine app, it should run fine. It should definitely run fine. Now, I would like to jump straight into gaming performance. So let's just use real racing game as a as a benchmark. It isn't the smoothest, as in it's smooth, but the frame rates that it can run isn't the highest. Let's just put it that way. So you're gonna see that the frame rate is slightly lower. I'm not sure it can be seen on camera, but the frame rate isn't really high, but it is smooth. There isn't any any spikes in frames, and it's definitely playable. And this, you have to take note that this is running on a 1200p display, so it is definitely of higher resolution, and it's more taxing on both the CPU as well as the graphics processor. I keep saying graphics card. Right. I have to say though that my experience on this device for gaming, especially in real racing where I just played it, is amazing. 7-inch, oh god, it's so loud. 7-inch display on for gaming is just nice. As you can see, you can hold it really well. There isn't much issues with holding it as compared to say a 10-inch tablet. So you can see that the frame rates that it runs aren't the highest, but it is very smooth in the sense that it can consistently power the phone and run it at that consistent frame rate. Alright, so there we go. That's gaming performance. Again, let me complete my sentence. Gaming on a 7-inch device like that, I believe this is the best. Oh, it's just amazing. The screen is so huge. It's just amazing for gaming. Of course, if it had more powerful hardware, it would be better. But there are some compromises you have to make to ensure that everything, price and whatever, is intact. So yeah, that's about it really. Gaming is good as well. Not the highest performing one, but it is one of the smoother ones that you can enjoy. 7-inch, really good. That's what I came out with. Alright, so let's move on. Next thing is the camera. Now you can see sample photos on the written reviews. You can even download the unedited ones. I will put a link in the full written review. And the camera is pretty good. Isn't excellent, but it's definitely above average. The performance above average. It doesn't have any HDR issues like the what do you call that? The Xiaomi devices, which I mentioned in the reviews for those devices, and it doesn't have that HDR issue. And photos are generally sharp. The colors are captured pretty well. Yeah, camera is pretty good, and video quality is slightly lacking, but is acceptable as well. Again, if you want to see all the sample images and video recording, do look for the full written review for the what do you call it? The sample, the links to the sample images, etc. So let's talk about the support for this phone. Now, of course, Huawei is quite a huge company. It's a huge company, right? Not quite, and they do provide some support for this phone. Although I'm not sure why they do not have the off-the-air update for Emotion UI 2.3, but it is available for you to download off their Emotion UI website. I will probably do an upgrade guide in a while. So yeah, so there are updates coming in for the phone, so do not worry. Officially, this device should be supported pretty well. In terms of peripherals and accessories, there are a lot of screen protectors that are designed specifically for the Huawei Honor X1. There are cases I can show you. I have one here. There are cases that that support the X1 as well. So yeah, there are lots of things that's designed for this device, and it's a full-fledged device that is well supported officially from retailers and whatnot. In terms of community support, I don't believe there are any custom ROMs available for the device yet, but there are people that are coming out with routing guides and so on. So in terms of community support, it's pretty okay. So yeah, that's about the support for the phone. So we'll jump into the conclusion. Now you can stay for the phone software review afterwards, which will be after the conclusion. But otherwise, you'll just hear the conclusion and you can end off with that. In terms of the Huawei Honor X1, this phone or device or phablet, I'll just call it a device for now, isn't the cheapest. It's one of the more expensive if you compare it with Chinese phones in general, Chinese branded stuff. For about $100 more, you can probably get like the Galaxy Tab S, I believe, 8.4 inch, and that is definitely a much more powerful device. Now that said, this is one of the only few devices that is in this form factor, and that's 7-inch. there aren't many new devices out there that comes in this form factor, and 7-inch is a really weird. I have mixed feelings about this, but I can see this working out, and I see why people actually enjoy using a device that is this small. I mean, the general idea is that if you want a tablet, you go probably bigger, like say 10-inch or even 8.4. That's the Galaxy one. But 7 is kind of nice, really. As in, I don't find the lack of the extra screen estate from the 8.4 isn't, say, too. The lack of extra screen estate, if you compare it, isn't that a deal breaker. There is sufficient enough. Reading on this device is pretty nice. Watching videos on this device of such size is nice as well, and it isn't, say, so clumsy that it isn't nice to bring about around, but it isn't that convenient as well to say to use it as a phone. So there are some compromises here and there, and if you are one that require something that's bigger and you don't mind the size, this is something I can definitely recommend you. Rather than holding a phone and a larger tablet, you can just hold one like that and use it as both a phone and a tablet. And otherwise, if you solely want to use it as a phone and you want something that's larger in size, then obviously you don't get this or as a phone. I don't believe that it is very practical if you're going to hold another bigger device with you, because it is cumbersome, you know. It's big, isn't nice to carry around. It doesn't really fit well in your pocket. It does fit in the back pockets, but isn't very nice. And yeah, that's something you want to take note of. So yeah, you can get this device. I can recommend it. The form factor is something that you will really have to test it out to feel if you really think that it can go with your current daily work life. But it is useful. Let's say it is useful, and the price point, while it isn't, say, very cheap, it is definitely competitive for what it provides. And yeah, that's about it. That's all I have to say. So if you would like to stay on for the phone software review, you can just stay on, because people sometimes say they don't want to listen to this part, so I leave it for the last. So the phone software, alright, if you want to hear too long didn't watch, don't want to hear and didn't read, it's okay. It's one of the okay custom OS that is out there. So you don't have to specifically go delete it or flash something. I can definitely see myself living with it. And there are some features on it that is pretty unique and pretty damn useful as well. So yeah, so we'll go straight into the phone software review, and that's the Emotion UI. So let's just go straight in, and I'll just show you quickly some of the more interesting stuff and keep the general stuff to the general stuff. So lock screen, pretty standard. And overall general UI responsiveness is good. It's fast, it's quick, and there isn't. Well, let me just turn off the lights. It's fast and quick, so general usage is pretty good, and it has the standard features like your quick toggles, as well as brightness control. You can edit it, customize it. Pretty standard, and it of course uses the iOS app layout kind of thing, where all your apps are in the home screen, no app loadout or anything like that. I really forgotten the name. I haven't used one that supports it. Yeah, anyway, so all your apps are on the home screen itself. Home screen is pretty customizable, not much, but you can customize the wallpaper, you can customize the transition, and you can even, I believe, you can actually edit the size of widgets. Yeah, so that's pretty full-fledged home screen app that is built into the Emotion UI. Now, for some of the more interesting stuff, we have a simple mode. Let's see if I can get, there we go. I'm just gonna show you simple home, and that is present in some other devices as well. So this is good for people that aren't very tech savvy, so the main stuff are already present and it's larger in font, etc. So say your grandparents or your parents might want to take a look at this. So if you're on a Della, you can just click it, and the thing is, the very cool thing about it is you can actually edit it. Look at that, you can add stuff to it, you can remove stuff, apps that you don't want. Yeah, so it's pretty nice. Look at that. Look at that. So we can add, and we can add custom applications, and you can have a range of all your applications. So it's very, very neat. It's a YouTube. There we go, YouTube, done. And launching it, we launched YouTube. So that is the simple home. Let's see if I can go back. So that is the one of the cooler things. Going back. So that's the simple UI settings of the Emotion UI. Now next up, we have the music player. I would really like to commend Huawei for doing the music player like that. Not in terms of the style, but in terms of functionality, it is functional. A lot of stock music players are just so bad. They cannot search for your songs properly. It doesn't read your songs properly. It doesn't read the text properly. Doesn't read the album art properly. But the Huawei music app on the Emotion UI works perfectly well. So you can even sort by album, artists, and folders. So pretty neat as well. Now, next up, I would like to talk about the phone manager app thing. This is basically their all-in-one suite that you have all the different types of manager. You have a notification manager, and they're pretty neat. So, for example, you can allow an app to allow it to push notifications. And you can allow it to actually prevent it from pushing any kinds of notifications. Then in terms of startup manager, you can choose what app you want available to be starting up on boot. So you can forbid it from starting up. You can let it boot, start up while booting, etc. So pretty neat as well. And lastly, the permission manager. You can see what apps are given what kind of thing based on either the rights or just the individual apps. So you can see, for example, access contacts. We have 8 different apps that can access my contact, and you can choose to notify you should it wants to accept, and then you can say, yeah, accept this time round or not. Otherwise, you can allow it directly to access your contacts, and it won't notify you as and when you're just basically granting it permission to access all your contacts. So that is very nice. So it has a pretty neat phone manager too that is present. Next up, we have something that I'm very, very interested to show you, and that is the power monitoring tool, and it is really useful. Let's see if I can get into this battery. Wrong. Power saving. There we go. So this power monitoring tool is pretty damn good in the sense that it tells you what is consuming battery, what things that you can do to optimize, but that's not the main thing that I would like to show you. And the main thing I want to show you is this. Now, what you see here is basically a breakdown of what apps that are eating the most battery in the background. Then the thing is that you can choose to either protect it from being closed while the phone is idle or standby, or you can allow it to continue to run, which for some cases you might want it. For example, your WhatsApp, you want it to run, and you don't want it to suddenly close, and then you're not able to receive any more app messages. But no, I'm not sure if this is right. So yeah, this is the interesting part, and if a new app appears in, like, let's say you install a new app, this will allow you to find out if that app is actually eating a lot of battery, because it will notify you, like, say, oh, this and this app in your is actually eating a lot of battery. Would you like to close it? And that is a very, very neat feature. I'm not sure how much this helps in terms of making the battery life longer, but yeah, the battery is really long and pretty damn good. You can see here some of the apps that are allowed to be running after the screen is turned off, like music, and they will tell you if it's power intensive or not. But some things you have to have it to be turned on, but where others you might not want, like say YouTube, for example, you don't want it to be on, and then you can just let the system know, and it will turn it off. So it's a very nice touch. So this is one of the best features, I say, of Emotion UI, and I can just show you. I believe I can just show you how long the battery has been lasting. 1 day, 13 hours, and it's still going. And let's just show you the screen usage. Look at that, 5 hours and 6 minutes. There is definitely much more you can run on it. You can see media server I've been using for how long. The keep awake part is how long I've been using it. For my music stuff is 2 hours 37 minutes. So it all adds up to be a very good battery life for the phone. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you about Emotion UI is the gestures. Now, it supports for some gestures. Not many are very useful. For example, the hover gestures are the hover gestures are basically some things that when you hover over an item, it will start previewing it. It's not very useful, but of course the useful one that more and more phones are supporting is the double tap to turn on the screen, which I will demonstrate right now. And there we go. So this is useful in the sense that if you want to use a one-hand usage, so if you're holding it and then it's like really hard to hold, like let's say you hold it like that, you can just tap it with your thumb and then it's on. So very nice of Emotion UI to have that. So that's basically it about Emotion UI. Basically all the other stock stuff is our reskin version of the stock Android apps, and they look nice, and we also have different themes for you to choose from, and yeah, you can even customize. You can show you quickly different screen lock style, transitions, etc. So it's a pretty good custom OS. I can definitely live with it as I am, and yeah, that's about it. So if you like this review, do give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments or questions, do let me know as well in the comments sections. Otherwise, that is it. And do of course read the full written review in case I missed out anything, because it will have everything there. And that's about it. Full written review, the link will be in the description bar. Do subscribe for more of such content, and I'll see you guys again soon.